Water as a natural phenomenon remains indispensable to living things, man and plants. Its essentiality to man cannot be overemphasized. That is why governments at local and international levels put machinery in motion to harmonize the water resources potentials in their geographical domain. Goal 6 is one of the 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) of the United Nations. It centers on clean water and sanitation. This, among other international conventions and best practices, has made Nigeria more committed than ever to an integrated water resources management. This resolve birthed the Nigeria Integrated Water Resources Management Commission. Pursuant to an integrated water resources sector, the Federal Executive Council, in accordance with global best standards and following the recommendations of the Committee on Federal Government Public Reform, approved the establishment of the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission in May 2007, with a statutory mandate to essentially assist the Honorable Minister of Water Resources and the governments of Nigeria to regulate and control the rights by all persons to develop and use water resources shared by more than one state.
The Nigeria Integrated Water Resources Management Commission, as it is called, came into being as a result of the reforms that have started taking place in the water sector as far back as 2006. With these reforms and with the establishment of the project that brought about some of the reforms that are supposed to take place, an EU project and a World Bank project that is called the Water Supply and Sanitation Sector Reform Program. And as it was then, staff of the ministry were put into the project as counterparts, and then we had also staff of the EU and World Bank. We were posted there, some of us as counterpart staff, and that is where all this started. Within the project, there was the idea of having the National Water Resources Bill, which is supposed to be the compendium of all the bills in the water sector, that is, institutions that are established. An example of the National Water Resources Institute in Kaduna, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. Then the Gurara Water Transfer was established, but the National Assembly actually did not wanted to pass a bill for only a single large dam. Then there was the bill also for the establishment of the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission, which is supposed to be called the Water Resources Regulatory Commission. As we are aware, in all the sectors of the economy, we had regulators, and there was a thought to establish a regulator in the water sector. And this is everything about the Water Resources Bill and the establishment of these agencies.
Just like any other agency of government, the organization's mandate is spelled around 3 key distinct roles, which includes definition of standards, regulation of water resources development, and water resources planning and management.
The Commission has 3 basic mandates. Definition of standards. We need to define the standards, including the type of drilling we want to be done. We are also to regulate water resources in its entirety in the country. Anywhere you have major rivers that cross more than one state, it is within the purview of the federal government to regulate such rivers. We are not talking about rivers that are within states. Rivers that are within states are within the bounds of the regulations of those states. So I think there is a clear cut of what the state is supposed to do and what the federal government is doing. Also, like the federal government is also looking at River Niger and Benue, because these are international rivers. And then what flows also down from the confluence of Lokoja in Benue State down to the south-south. So we are also to look at water resources planning and management as a whole. And this is basically what the Commission is supposed to do it.
With respect to carrying out the mandates of the organization, being a regulatory body, we realize that if we must make headway with respect to this protracted issue of non-compliance that's been ongoing for so long, we must be able to, we'll have to begin to hold the 14 entities to account. And towards this end, we apply for the consent or the approval of the Honorable Minister of Water Resources for an expanded protocol to enable us begin to thoroughly engage with the Office of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation.
At the heart of these three key distinct roles lies the following functions for the Commission. Implement regulatory policies on activities relating to the development of water resources in Nigeria. Be responsible for economic and technical regulation of all aspects of water resources exploitation and provision, construction, operation, maintenance and tariffs of public and private water resources infrastructure. Ensure the safety and quality of water resources development and public water service by regulating standards for execution and performance. Issues water resources licenses in accordance with the provisions of the Act. Liaise with relevant agencies to conduct studies and surveys for the purpose of establishing water resources balance, catchment management plans, and water efficiency strategies. Protect consumers from unfair practices of licensees and other persons in the supply of water resources services and facilities.
Going through the process of, following up to ensure that the licenses that we are giving to stakeholders, they are following due process. By due process, I mean before the licenses were given to them, there are requirements that were provided for them to fulfill, and these are the things we check while we visit them in their places of operation. That's what we call compliance monitoring, which presupposes that whatever agreement you have entered with the Commission, you have to follow it in tandem.
Driven by a vision to ensure the management of safe and sustainable water for all, the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission has been living up to its bidding, especially in the past 3 years, with new impetus injected into the operations of the agency. With a mission that is not far from its vision, the agency has been working to restore and protect the nation's water resources for good of all. As empowered by law to be the regulator of the water sector in Nigeria, the Commission under the current leadership has continued to process applications for water right licenses to prospective service providers.
When we come to the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission itself, being a regulator in the sector or a commission or an agency of government that is supposed to regulate water resources in the country. Of course, our vision is to ensure the management of safe and sustainable water for all in the country. And our mission is to restore and protect the nation's water resources for the good of all. Now, with this mission and vision, we are actually saying that we are looking at the whole water resources in the country. How good will these water resources be in the country? And that also gives us the allowance to regulate, protect the use itself. That means to issue licenses for those bulk users.
Water use regulation has been vetted by the Honorable Minister, Federal Minister of Water Resources, and gazetted in February 2016 and amended in July 2020.
If you've read the Water Resources Act, non-compliance with the provisions of the Act or regulations made thereunder is more or less a criminal offense. It can result in being liable upon conviction to 6 months imprisonment, fine of 2,000 or both. So we've been engaging stakeholders, commercial bulk water users, in trying to encourage them to come on board with respect to voluntary compliance so that we don't need to weed the big stick before we get them to do what they ought to do.
The agency is today more determined to recalibrate its licensable activities of hydropower, irrigation, aquaculture, horticulture, tourism, dam development, and water supply for commercial scale of any water use.
Some people will come and obtain license and sublet it. So we call it transfer of license. You can't do that without our permission. When we go on monitoring and discover that the purpose of giving you the license, you are not using it for that, we call for revoke and seizure of that license because you have derailed based on the requirements and the conditions attached to the issue of that license. So these are basically what we will try to do to ensure the purpose for giving you that license is achieved, to ensure you are working according to the law on the provision of such licenses to such stakeholders.
We've been sensitizing stakeholders. We've been collaborating with the regulatory agencies in states that have, and it's not all the states that have regulatory agencies right now. Some states have their own regulatory agency like Lagos, Kaduna, one or two other states, but all the states have supervisory ministries. Where there's no regulatory agency, we have the supervisory ministry in bringing everybody, both at the state level, trying to do a bottom-top approach at the state level and at the federal level.
Construction of borehole, construction and operation of hydraulic structure for rivers, dams, water, intake barrages, groins, bed and bank stabilization, dikes, polders, wells, public and private irrigation and drainage systems, diversion and impoundment of water for mining and wastewater discharge to watercourses. The Commission's scope and area of coverage also includes discharge waste or water-containing water body, undertaken drainage and land reclamation, capital dredging, sand dredging, rock blasting, and rock removal from rivers and bridges, any work affecting the bank and beds of watercourse to coordinate the multiple water uses in a river basin. Barely 1.5 decades of its existence, the organization has the visionary leadership of the present Executive Director of the Nigerian Water Resources Management Commission, pursued with vigor a template for water source protection policy plan. This, of course, explains the following achievements recorded in recent times. The Strategic Action Plans 2020 to 2024 was presented to the Honorable Minister of Water Resources on 17th March 2020, spearheaded by the Executive Director and his team of directors. An initiative the Honorable Minister commended. Development of Nigeria water footprint, water resources regulations and coordination in catchment offices. Approval of Water Use and License Regulations 2020 as amended by the Honorable Minister. Finalization of National Water Source Protection Policy Plan document. Policy and legal frameworks validated in August 2021, and the production of the guidelines for the implementation of the water policy. Conducted compliance monitoring and enforcement visit to the underlisted licensees. GNAL Irrigated Sugarcane Estates and Factory, Gagarawa Local Government Area, Jigawa State. Kano Hydro and Energy Development Company Limited, Tiga Hydroelectric Power Plant, Kano State, on 10th August 2020. Chalawa Hydro and Energy Company Limited, Challawa Hydroelectric Power Plant, Kano State on 10th August 2020. Manomi Support Services Limited, Demsa Local Government Area, Adamawa State. Pacific Energy Company Limited, operator of thermal electricity plant, Ajeban Del Paye, Odigbo Local Government Area, Ondo State. Nestle Niwrmc PLC, Nestle Factory, Abaji FCT.
We were able to produce documents of other policies. We have produced guidelines for the protection of those water sources. We have been able to produce a document that is the water use license, and this has been approved by the Honorable Minister in 2020. These are scale of fees that we have for the people that take bulk water, be it raw water or be it underground water. They are supposed to pay government a certain amount, and this is to let government maintain those infrastructures that are being placed there. Even in the irrigation fields, this is also obtainable. We have water users associations that collect money for the waters they use. Actually, the money is being used to repair those canals and then the major basins that they have that distribute the water into the canals and so on. So these are some of the things that we have done, and you can imagine in those days a cubic meter of water, which is about 1,000 liters, is being paid 25 kobo. But when we came on board, we tried to look at these things and we called stakeholders, we discussed on this. Today, they are paying 100 naira, which is also not, because if we look at the economic value of water, they are supposed to pay actually more than that. So we are still in the process of trying to see how we can agree with the stakeholders and government to see which we give a fairly reasonable charge that will be enough that can help government to keep these infrastructures going. So these are some of the things that we are doing differently.
So far, the Commission has issued 72 numbers of licenses for various purposes and still counting, and the breakdown goes thus. 13 licenses were issued to borehole contractors and drillers. 1 license for hydropower was amended and reissued, while 6 borehole drillers' licenses are undergoing processing. Produced the National Water Source Protection Policy Guidelines, business frameworks and strategy for Commission to open up frontier opportunities for revenue generation. Developments of water allocation framework for Lake Chad and Upper Benue catchment area.
There are licenses for boreholes, for borehole drillers. These we issue to companies that are in the drilling industry. They pay government a certain token amount for their registration, and we know they are there. So what we need from them is that we need the data. After they drill these boreholes, we collect this data from them to keep in our archives. That is one. The second one are people that use bulk water for their activities. There are people that use water for hydropower generation. This also pay government amount because they generate electricity to sell to those that need it, and therefore they pay government a certain fee yearly. There are people that are in the business of water production. I'm talking about the big users like Nestle, like the others. Those ones establish big boreholes, large diameter boreholes, and they take water from underground, which belongs to everybody. So they pay token amounts to government also. All other bottlers are doing that. They're paying government for those that we have within our reach, but we have also put a mechanism of reaching every other person that is also producing water from underground or surface source, because there are people taking water from the major rivers and they are producing bottled water while after filtration and all that. So those are also pain.
Pivotal to the successes and operations of the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission are 8 key departments under the leadership of the Executive Director. These departments are Department of Corporate Services, Departments of Monitoring and Enforcement, Departments of Allocation and Authorization, Departments of Catchment Management and Water Utilization, Department of Finance and Account, Human Resources Department, Legal Services Department, Department of GIS, ICT and Library. This is in addition to units like Press, Protocol, Procurement, Audit, Gender and Human Rights units. All these have been together over the years, taking the Commission to enviable heights that are commensurate with its establishment ideals.
The Commission is operating under 8 catchment offices. We normally call them catchment instead of zonal offices. They call them catchment offices because it's based on the drainage system where it drains. So we just consider that as a catchment office. So we are having 8 catchment offices in the country. So for one that want to obtain a license, we have some requirements that we need before we issue the license. First of all, he has to apply to the executive director that is looking for water license for a particular activities. We have different categories, either irrigation, discharge into water bodies, and other things. So we have to make that an application. After the application, you have a requirement in the form. We give you the form. After filling the form, you pay it back. So, until when you finish all the requirements that we ask you, then you need to take a technical site assessment visit to make sure that all the information given are in order and whether is qualified to get the water.
Part of our mandate as a department is trying to monitor the water users that have been identified through the Department of Water Allocation and Authorization, who has or had picked license over time. So what we do as a department is going through the process of, following up to ensure that the licenses that we are giving to stakeholders, they are following due process. By due process, I mean before the licenses were given to them, there are requirements that were provided for them to fulfill, and these are the things we check while we visit them in their places of operation.
We have not convicted anybody, which is all we are right now, and we want to make that conviction is signature. We want to make that signature statement that nobody will be above the law, because you have big companies that are just flouting because they think there is no consequence and all that. So they think there's no consequence. But we have not, but we are right now, we're on track to ensure that we make an example of a veteran defaulter that has refused to yield to common sense and is flagrantly flouting the law, thinking that there will be no repercussion.
Today, the water sector in Nigeria is more sanitized and coordinated to provide safe, clean water to Nigerians, with the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission policing to ensure compliance with best standards as stipulated in the Act establishing the Commission. In the foreseeable future, the Nigerian Integrated Water Resources Management Commission is more determined to help government generate more revenue when adequately funded to execute its mandate seamlessly.
Well, for me, I want to take you to the highest place, actually, to see that it has been established like all other regulators, fully established, to have an accommodation of our own, to have very good packages for the staff, to be able to work very well, to put more time of themselves, and then I would be happy anytime I leave this place and look back and see that this place has not collapsed. It is still working and is generating funds for the federal government. And also the staff that have left have also graduated to be heading the departments in this place and so on. So that will be my pride.
While hoping that the Water Resources Bill, which is a compendium of all existing laws in the water sector, will be understood and subsequently passed into law to provide solutions to most of the challenges being faced in the sector. This is in addition to the avowed resolve by the Commission to work tirelessly to execute its mandate diligently and effectively, despite a number of constraints, not also forgetting to always ensure that the principles of international water resources management are implemented until sustainable development is achieved and maintained.